The rain came down in gentle sheets, making the streetlights glow like soft lanterns through a cloudy mist. Late one evening, the bus stop lay nearly empty, its metal bench damp and cold. An old man sat there, his back rounded from years of work and worry. His clothes were plain and worn, and his thin umbrella trembled in his shaking hands. He peered down the road, waiting for a bus that might take him home. His name was Mr. Kumar, and tonight he felt very alone. A woman stepped off the bus just as it pulled away. She was young and carried a canvas bag slung over one shoulder. Her hair was tied back neatly, and her coat kept out the chill. Her name was Aisha. She had left work late after helping her niece with homework and was tired, but her heart stayed open. When she saw the old man struggling with his umbrella, she stopped walking. She felt a quick tug of pity and concern. "Excuse me," she said softly as rain dripped from the brim of his hat. The old man looked up, his face creased with surprise. "Are you all right, sir? Your umbrella looks like it might break." He tried a small nod, but his words stayed inside him. His voice felt far away, almost lost under the patter of rain. Aisha stepped closer and held her umbrella out to share. "You can stand under this," she offered. "I don't mind," he hesitated, his eyes shy behind thick glasses. The busy street behind him seemed to blur. He slowly leaned toward her umbrella's edge. The rain splashed on the fabric as she adjusted it so his head stayed dry. "Thank you," he said in a soft voice barely louder than the rain. Aisha smiled and nodded gently. She held the umbrella steady and guided him to the edge of the curb. A bus was coming, its headlights cutting through the wet darkness. She checked her watch. It would be full, but she knew she could help him. When the doors hissed open, she took his arm and helped him step onto the bus. It lurched forward, and people inside shifted to make room. The seats were vinyl and cold. Aisha found one next to the window and guided Mr. Kumar toward it. He moved slowly, choosing each step with care. Other passengers glanced across the aisle. Noticing the kindness, she helped him into the seat, smoothing his scarf around his neck. Then she folded her umbrella and settled beside him, keeping her bag on her lap. He patted his coat pocket and pulled out a small, faded photograph of a young girl smiling. He ran a finger over it, like it was a treasure. Aisha watched with quiet curiosity, but did not pry. The bus hummed as it moved through the night streets. Rain beat on the windows, created a gentle rhythm. Aisha kept her eyes on Mr. Kumar. She wondered how long he had waited alone at the stop. She thought of her own grandmother, who lived in another city. A memory touched her heart, her grandmother's warm laugh when she taught her to bake cookies. Compassion rose in Aisha's chest, steadying her. When the bus slowed near a sign that read Main Street, Aisha pulled out her phone. She dialed a number she knew by heart, Mr. Kumar's daughter's number. The line rang twice before a tired voice answered. "Hello?" the daughter asked. "Good evening," Aisha said kindly. "My name is Aisha. I'm on the bus with your father. I saw him at the bus stop in the rain and wanted to make sure he got home safely." The daughter's voice caught with relief. "Oh, thank you. I was so worried. He left my house earlier than I expected." Aisha smiled in the quiet. "Dark, he's here. We'll be at the next stop in about 5 minutes. I'll help him off the bus and make sure he gets inside." The daughter's voice warmed. "That means the world to me. Please tell him I love him." Aisha nodded, even though the daughter could not see her. "I will," she promised. They hung up. Mr. Kumar turned his head toward Aisha. His eyes were bright behind his glasses. "You called my daughter?" he asked. His voice had more strength now. She nodded and covered the phone screen with her hand so others could not see the name. "She cares about you," Aisha said gently. She was worried. The old man gave her a small smile and folded the photograph back into his coat pocket. The bus slowed again, and the brakes hissed. The driver opened the front doors. Aisha stood and guided Mr. Kumar toward the exit. She offered her arm, and he rested his hand on it. The rain had eased to a soft drizzle. A street lamp by the stop cast a pale glow on the pavement. Across the road stood a small house with warm lights in the windows. The daughter was already waiting, holding a bright umbrella. Aisha eased her father's steps until he reached the sidewalk. The daughter ran forward. "Dad," she cried, grief and relief mixing in her voice. She hugged him tightly, and he patted her head. Aisha stepped back, letting them share their moment. The daughter turned to her. "Thank you so much," she said, tears glistening on her cheeks. Then she offered a small wallet. "Please, let me pay you for the bus fare." Aisha shook her head and smiled. "I only wanted to help," she said softly. "I'm glad he's safe," the daughter insisted, but Aisha gently refused again. "We all look out for one another," she said. "That's what matters." The daughter held her gaze for a moment, then nodded, understanding. Aisha waved and started to walk back toward the bus stop.
Ow.
The rain had almost stopped. She tucked the umbrella under her arm and felt a quiet warmth in her heart. Her shoes made soft squelches in the wet leaves. She thought of the night's small miracle. How a simple choice to step off a moving bus and share an umbrella could bring two lost souls back together as she walked. She glanced at her phone screen. There was a message from her niece. "Don't forget tomorrow's project." Aisha smiled, tapping out a quick reply. She felt light, like the rain had washed away more than just the dust of the road. In the distance, she heard the bus engine rumble as it left. She watched it pull away into the mist. That night, Aisha lay in bed thinking of Mr. Kumar's gentle eyes. Now she tried to imagine his life story. A man who had taught children long ago who now lived alone, waiting in the rain. She felt both proud and humble. She knew one small moment could matter more than she ever realized. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The city lights reflected on the wet pavement like millions of tiny fires. Aisha closed her eyes and drifted to sleep, carrying with her the soft echo of a life touched and a promise that kindness could change the world. One umbrella at a time, ChatGPT said. Aisha stepped off the bus to let Mr. Kumar find a seat, guiding him gently toward the middle where more people sat. The bus was crowded now, the walls humming with warm air and quiet murmurs. The lights overhead flickered softly as the vehicle moved down the wet streets. Rain dripped from coats and umbrellas packed by the door. Aisha saw an empty seat by the window and held Mr. Kumar's elbow as she led him to it. He moved slowly, his steps careful and sure, trusting her steady guidance. She folded her umbrella and tucked it under her arm. The bus lurched once, and Aisha braced a hand on the pole while Mr. Kumar sat down. He patted his pockets and then reached for a small cloth bag at his feet. Inside was the photograph of his granddaughter that he had shown earlier. He clutched it for a moment and then slid it back into the bag. He looked at Aisha and offered a small, shy smile. She nodded and gave him a warm look before turning away to dial her phone. Her fingers pressed the screen with purpose, and she held the phone to her ear as she cleared her throat. Mr. Kumar sat still, his eyes closed for an instant as he listened to the engine's rumble. The other passengers leaned forward or shifted in their seats as they rose or prepared to stand at their stops. Some stared at the window, watching the city lights blur past. A young man in a blue jacket yawned and rubbed his eyes. A woman with bright red headphones smiled at a message on her phone. No one spoke out loud, but their glances drifted toward Aisha's gentle conversation. She spoke softly, her voice calm and patient, like a friend offering comfort. Mr. Kumar looked at her from behind his glasses, curiosity shining in his eyes. "Hello, Mrs. Sharma," Aisha said. "This is Aisha. I'm on the bus with your father, safe now. But I wanted to let you know we will arrive at your stop in a few minutes." She paused and listened. Her face was serious but kind. Yes, he was waiting alone in the rain. I offered my umbrella and helped him onto the bus. Aisha held her breath, concentrating on the road ahead and the bus's gentle sway. No, he seems fine now. A little tired, but he's warming up. The rain stopped a bit back. She smiled softly when she heard Mrs. Sharma's words. "Thank you for checking in. I know you worry." Mr. Kumar watched Aisha's profile. He noticed how she tapped a finger lightly on the phone, then cradled it between shoulder and ear when she needed both hands. Her hair fell in a neat braid down her back, and her coat stayed open so she looked relaxed. He thought of how hard it might have been for him to make that call if he had been alone. His voice might have trembled. He felt lucky to have met this kind stranger. Across the aisle, a young woman peeked at them from behind a magazine. She smiled at Aisha's gentle tone and turned back to her reading. Aisha spoke again, and Mr. Kumar could hear his daughter's relieved sigh. "I can't thank you enough," she said. "He means the world to me." Aisha replied, "He means a lot to me too now." The bus slowed at an intersection, and a few passengers shifted, preparing to stand at the next stop. The driver's voice crackled over the speaker. "Main Street next?" "Mrs. Sharma, we're here," Aisha said, turning her head so the daughter could understand. She pressed a finger to her lips to signal that she would hang up soon. Mr. Kumar felt his heart swell at the thought of seeing his daughter again. The photograph of his granddaughter sat heavier in his coat pocket now. Aisha ended the call and slipped her phone back into her bag. She looked at Mr. Kumar and said, "She's waiting for you at the next stop. She sounds so happy." He nodded, and his eyes grew bright with tears he would not shed in front of strangers. The bus's doors hissed open, and rain splashed on the steps. Together, they rose. Aisha offered her arm, and Mr. Kumar took it gratefully. They stepped off and stood on the sidewalk under the dull glow of the street lamp. The rain had slowed to a soft mist. Across the street, Mrs. Sharma stood under a bright umbrella, her coat wrapped tightly. When she saw her father, she ran toward him, her face lighting up. She knelt to hug him, and Mr. Kumar wrapped his arms around her shoulders. Aisha watched quietly, feeling warmth fill her chest. Mrs. Sharma looked up at Aisha, her eyes shining. "Thank you for bringing him safely," she said, voice choked with gratitude. She reached into her purse and pulled out 2 tickets, a bus pass, and some change. "Please, let me pay you for the fare." Aisha shook her head and smiled. "It was no trouble," she said softly. "I'm just glad he's safe with you," Mrs. Sharma insisted, but Aisha gently refused again. "We all look out for each other," she said. "Just take care of him." Mrs. Sharma's shoulders relaxed, and she returned the tickets to her purse. "You remind me of my mother," she said. "She was always helping people." Aisha's smile grew. "That's a lovely way to live," she replied. She checked her watch. It was late, but she felt no rush to go home. She watched Mr. Kumar and his daughter share a quiet moment, safe and warm under the umbrella. Before leaving, Mrs. Sharma invited Aisha inside for a cup of tea. Aisha hesitated, thinking of her niece's homework waiting at home. Yet she felt drawn by the promise of connection. "I would love that," she said. Mrs. Sharma led her across the street. They stepped inside a small building with warm lights and the smell of fresh jasmine tea. Mr. Kumar settled into an armchair by the window, while Mrs. G. Sharma disappeared into the kitchen. Aisha asked Mr. Kumar about his evening. He told her he had come from a friend's home after dinner, planning to catch the last bus. He had lost track of time and got to the stop just as the rain began. He had stayed, hoping for shelter, but his hands grew colder with each passing minute. Aisha squeezed his hand. "I'm glad I was on that bus," she said. Mrs. Sharma returned with 2 steaming cups on a small tray and a plate of biscuits. She placed a cup before Aisha. "I hope you like ginger," she said. Aisha took a gentle sip, the warmth spreading through her hands. They settled into quiet conversation, exchanging stories about their families and work. Mrs. Sharma worked at a library, and Mr. Kumar had once taught at a school nearby. Aisha spoke of her job as a marketing assistant and how she balanced work with family life. As they talked, the room grew cozier. The rain had stopped entirely, and the city outside looked calm under the streetlights. Aisha felt her tiredness fade, replaced by a contented ease. She laughed quietly at Mr. Kumar's gentle jokes about old school days and told Mrs. Sharma how her niece loved reading children's stories. The biscuits were sweet, and the tea warmed her like a soft blanket. When it was time to go, Mrs. Sharma walked Aisha to the door. "Thank you again," she said, placing a hand on Aisha's arm. "You've done more than I can express." Aisha smiled. "It was my honor," she said. They hugged, and then Aisha stepped back into the night air. The street was quiet and clear of rain. She walked home with light steps, thinking of the small moments that change lives. By the time she reached her own door, she felt richer than before. A simple act of kindness had rippled into new friendships and warmth she would carry always. She unlocked her door, climbed the stairs, and slipped inside. Her heart full of hope and the memory of 2 grateful smiles that would stay with her long after the evening ended. A few days passed after that rainy night, and Aisha could not stop thinking about Mr. Kumar and his daughter. She woke one Saturday morning with a clear plan. She would visit Mr. Kumar in his own home and bring something warm for him to eat. The sun shone softly through her bedroom window, and she dressed in comfortable clothes. She tucked her long braid behind her ear, grabbed a small pot of homemade vegetable soup from her kitchen, and placed it in a sturdy bag alongside 2 fresh rolls. She smiled at her reflection and whispered, "Today I will see him again." The bus ride to Mr. Kumar's neighborhood felt different from the first time. Aisha looked out the window at quiet houses with small gardens. The leaves on the trees shivered in a gentle breeze, and the air smelled of early spring. She held the soup bag on her lap, feeling its warmth seep through the fabric. She thought of her grandmother's advice: kindness warms more than the body. That saying echoed in her mind as the bus neared Mr. Kumar's stop. When she stepped off, she saw the same small house with warm lights in the windows. The front garden had bright flowers now, and a small bench sat under a vine. Aisha walked up the path and tapped lightly on the door. She held her breath as the door swung open, and Mr. Kumar's daughter stood there, smiling. "Hello, Aisha," Mrs. Sharma said. She wore a cozy sweater and her eyes looked bright. "Come in, please." Aisha stepped inside. The house felt homely, with wooden floors and soft rugs. A painting of a young man in a teacher's gown hung above the fireplace. Photographs of Mr. Kumar teaching in a classroom lined the walls. A gentle warmth spread through the rooms. Mrs. Sharma led Aisha down a short hallway and opened a door. "Here he is," she said softly. Inside, Mr. Kumar sat in a comfortable armchair next to a small window. A lace curtain filtered the sunlight, making a warm glow on his gray hair. He looked up and smiled when he saw Aisha. "Good morning, Mr. Kumar," she said quietly, setting the soup bag on a side table. "I brought this for you." He patted the arm of his chair and nodded. "You are very kind," he said in his gentle voice. His words felt special to Aisha, and she returned his smile. Mrs. Sharma brought over 2 bowls and spoons. She ladled soup into each bowl, and the steam rose in soft threads. The scent of carrots and beans filled the room. Aisha handed 1 bowl to Mr. Kumar and kept the other for herself. She sat on a small stool nearby. They ate slowly, enjoying the warmth and flavor. Mr. Kumar's appetite was small, so he took small sips and bites. Aisha talked about her week at work and how her niece's school play went. Mr. Kumar listened, nodding kindly and wiping his lips on a thin napkin. After a while, Mrs. Sharma excused herself to tend to some chores. She left Aisha and her father alone. Quiet settled in the room. Aisha cleared her bowl and placed it on the table. She leaned forward and asked, "Can I help you with anything, Mr. Kumar?" He rested his hands on his lap and looked thoughtful. "My home is old," he said. "Sometimes I struggle to open these windows or carry heavy things." Aisha stood and walked over to the window. She lifted the sash easily and let in a soft breeze. The room brightened, and a few petals from a rosebush drifted inside. She smiled. "There," she said, "that should help." He nodded and turned. "To her, you have a kind heart, Aisha. It reminds me of my wife." His voice softened, and his eyes grew distant for a moment. Aisha's chest tightened. She could imagine the love he felt for the woman he lost. Without speaking, she placed her hand gently on his shoulder. He squeezed her hand lightly and cleared his throat. "Tell me about your family," he said. "I would like to know more." Aisha sat again and described her parents, her brother, who lived abroad, and her niece who loved art. Mr. Kumar listened, asking gentle questions in his slow, careful way. He told her about his own family, how he and his wife raised 2 children, how he taught in that same neighborhood school for 30 years, and how he watched the world change around him. As he spoke, his face grew warm with memory. He described the first time he met his wife under a mango tree at a picnic. He laughed softly when he told how he dropped his hat into a pond while trying to impress her. Aisha listened with delight, imagining the scene. a younger version of Mr. Kumar splashing by the water, apologizing as his bride-to-be watched and giggled. The next hour passed in gentle stories. They spoke of festivals where he served sweets, 2 children, of school plays he directed, and of the day he retired and felt both joy and sorrow. Aisha saw how much life he had lived and how much warmth he still held. When he paused to rest, she offered him water and checked that he was comfortable. Finally, Aisha realized how time had flown. The sun had moved higher, and a soft hum from the street came through the open window. She glanced at her watch. It was nearly lunchtime. She stood and stretched. "I should go soon," she said. Mr. Kumar nodded. "Thank you for today," he said, his voice full of gratitude. Aisha bowed her head. "Thank you for inviting me in," she replied. She walked to the door and turned back. "I want to help more," she said. "Maybe we can find volunteers to bring meals or help with small chores." His face brightened with hope. "That would mean the world to me," he said. "Thank you." When she stepped outside, the day felt bright and full of promise. Mrs. Sharma stood in the hallway, smiling. "He talks about you all the time," she said. "You're a blessing." Aisha felt a warmth in her chest as she waved goodbye. Over the next week, Aisha put her plan into action. She posted a note on the community board at her workplace, inviting interested friends and neighbors to join a small team to help Mr. Kumar and other seniors. She typed gentle words about sharing meals, doing light housework, and offering company. She handed out flyers at a nearby cafe. She spoke to her friend Ravi, who volunteered to fix small things around the house, and to Mira, who offered to bring fresh flowers each week. By the end of the week, a small group of 5 people had signed up. On a sunny Saturday morning, they gathered outside Mr. Kumar's house. Aisha welcomed them and introduced each person. Ravi carried a toolbox. Mira held a bouquet of yellow marigolds, and 2 more neighbors brought boxes of cookies and tea. They walked up the path together, their footsteps light with purpose. Mr. Kumar opened the door, and his eyes widened with surprise and gratitude. "You have come," he said softly. Aisha nodded. "You want to help," she said. She gestured to the group. "We have soup, cookies, tea, and fresh flowers. Ravi can check your windows and doors. You're here to share time with you." His daughter stood behind him, tears in her eyes. She fell into her father's arms, and he patted her back. Then he turned to the group. "Thank you," he said in a clear, steady voice. "Your kindness fills my heart." Aisha felt a tear slip down her cheek as she watched him. They stepped inside together. The small house filled with chatter and laughter as they brought in food and flowers. "Ak!" Mira placed the marigolds on the table, their bright petals catching the light. Ravi knelt by the window, tightening a hinge that had squeaked for years. Others set tea and cookies on a tray. Aisha helped carry chairs and listened as they talked of books, plants, and life stories. In that simple home, a new community formed. Neighbors from different lives came together, sharing moments of joy and care. Mr. Kumar sat among them, his heart warmed by friendship. Aisha watched with pride. She realized that a single act of shelter on a rainy night had blossomed into a circle of kindness that would help him and many others. In that small living room, words and laughter filled the air, weaving a promise that no one in the neighborhood would ever wait in the rain alone again. Aisha walked down the quiet street with a new sense of purpose. The morning air was cool and fresh, and she carried a clipboard filled with notes and ideas. In the last week, the small group of volunteers had grown. Word had spread through neighbors and friends, and now Aisha hoped to bring everyone together in one place. Today was the first gathering at the local community center. She felt a flutter of nerves, but also excitement. She believed this would deepen the connections they had begun. The community center stood at the corner of Maple and 3rd. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, lighting up a wide room with wooden floors. Folding chairs were set in a circle, and a long table held bowls of fresh fruit, sandwiches, tea, and homemade cookies. Handwritten signs on the wall said, "Friendship Hour," and "All are welcome." Aisha took a deep breath and opened the front door. Inside, people were already arriving. Mrs. Sharma brought a tray of jasmine tea and greeted Aisha with a warm hug. Ravi carried a box of board games and waved to a neighbor named Farah, who balanced plates of sliced cucumbers and tomatoes. Two teenagers from down the street stood shyly with their backpacks. They had signed up to listen and learn. Aisha smiled. She had hoped for a small group, but this looked like many more people than she imagined. Mr. Kumar walked in last, leaning on his cane, his eyes bright. He wore a light blue sweater that matched the sky outside. When he saw the room, his face lit up. He reached for Aisha's hand and squeezed it gently. "This is wonderful," he said quietly, his voice full of surprise and gratitude. Aisha guided him to a comfortable chair by the window. A hush fell over the newcomers. Aisha stepped into the center of the circle and tapped gently on a teacup. "Thank you all for coming," she began in a calm, friendly voice. "This is our first friendship hour. We are here to share time, stories, and simple kindness. Some of us know each other already, others are new, but today we come together as neighbors." She looked around. Faces smiled back and people nodded. A volunteer named Samuel offered cups of tea. Mrs. Sharma passed plates of cookies. The two teenagers, Leah and Omar, set out the board games near a small table. Aisha invited people to help themselves. "Please feel free to choose a seat and get something to drink or eat. We will start once everyone is settled." As people sat, the room felt warm and gentle. The wooden floors creaked softly when someone shifted. The sun cast long shadows on the walls, and a breeze drifted in through the open window. Aisha walked around, welcoming each person by name. She paused to introduce Leah and Omar, who spoke shyly but said they were happy to help. When everyone had tea or cookies, Aisha raised her voice just above a whisper so all could hear. "I thought we could start with a simple activity. Let's share one small moment from our week that brought us joy. It could be anything, a funny thought, a kind word, a small success." She pointed to herself. "I will go first. Yesterday I watched my niece paint a picture of her favorite flowers. She was so proud when she finished that she danced around the room. She laughed softly, and others smiled. Then she nodded to Mr. Kumar. He straightened his back in the chair and cleared his throat. His cane stood by his side. "My moment was this morning," he said in a steady voice. "I opened my front door and saw the marigolds Mira left in my garden. Their bright petals made me feel alive again." His eyes shone, and the group applauded his words. One by one, each person spoke. Mrs. Sharma said her moment was helping at the library and seeing a child find the perfect storybook. Ravi said it was fixing his neighbor's leaky faucet. Farah said it was learning a new recipe for vegetable soup. Leah and Omar shared that their small moments were hearing birds sing on their walk to school. Each story was simple but true, and it tied them together. After the circle, Aisha stood and said, "Now, if you'd like, we have games, crafts, and time to talk. Feel free to join any activity." Some people moved to the board game table, laughing as they played chess and checkers. Others stayed in the circle and chatted softly. Aisha noticed Mr. Kumar watching the games. She walked over and offered to guide him to a puzzle table nearby. At the puzzle table, she spread out pieces of a colorful landscape. Mr. Kumar leaned over, his eyes focused. His hands moved slowly but with purpose as he found matching pieces. Aisha helped him fit a piece into place, and he smiled broadly. The puzzle began to take shape, a serene countryside with rolling hills and bright flowers. As they worked, they spoke about how puzzles felt like life, small parts fitting together to form a bigger picture. Some volunteers brought over copies of Mr. Kumar's favorite poetry. A young woman named Emily read aloud a short poem by Tagore. The words floated through the room like gentle music. Mr. Kumar listened with closed eyes, memorizing each phrase. When the poem ended, he spoke softly. "Poetry saves us. It reminds us that we share our hearts even when we are apart." The group sat in grateful silence. Later, Mrs. Sharma invited everyone to help make simple handicrafts. They used colored paper, scissors, and glue to fold origami flowers. Aisha guided Omar as he tried to fold a paper crane. He frowned in concentration, but his fingers soon created neat creases. He held up his green crane and beamed. "Look," he said, "it flies." Everyone cheered, and the room filled with warm energy. As the afternoon moved on, the light shifted. To a golden glow, Aisha realized they had been together for 2 hours. She tapped her teacup again and asked for quiet. She thanked everyone for their time and warmth. "I hope this friendship hour brought you joy," she said. "I plan to hold this every week at the same time. We will share stories, learn from each other, and support our seniors and each other." She paused. "Would you like to help organize or suggest activities?" Hands raised and people offered ideas. Gardening, cooking lessons, guest speakers, storytelling workshops. Mr. Kumar stood slowly with the help of his cane. He faced the group. "I am a teacher by heart," he said. "I want to give back. I would be honored to host a poetry reading next week. I can share stories of my life and teach simple lessons from my years in the classroom." The group applauded. Aisha felt tears prickle her eyes. She had seen a man regain his purpose and dignity, and that filled her with joy. When the gathering ended, people helped clear chairs and fold tables. They placed leftover cookies in containers and poured out the last of the tea. Aisha walked around, hugging each volunteer. She thanked them for their help and asked for feedback. Everyone agreed that next week's session would be even better. As the center emptied, Aisha stayed behind with Mr. Kumar and Mrs. Sharma. They sat at a small table, sipping the final cups of tea. Sunlight painted their faces in golden light. Mr. Kumar picked up a piece of origami he had completed and held it to his heart. "This is a living memory," he said quietly. "Every fold holds a smile." He looked at Aisha. "You have done something wonderful here. You have given me hope and friendship." Aisha smiled and squeezed his hand. On her way home, Aisha thought of the empty streets lit by street lamps. She remembered how nervous she had felt that morning. Now she felt content and excited for the next week. She realized that this circle of kindness would grow and touch many lives. She walked with light steps, her heart alive with the promise of new stories, fresh laughter, and the simple truth that when people come together, they can warm the coldest nights and brighten the darkest corners. And in that moment, under the soft glow of city lights, Aisha understood that true friendship was the strongest umbrella against any storm. A week passed since the first friendship hour at the community center. Aisha found herself waking early each morning, eager to see what would come next. On this bright Saturday, she carried a small notebook in her bag. Inside, she'd scribbled ideas for gardening projects, book exchanges, and even a simple music day where neighbors could share songs. She hummed softly as she walked down Maple Street, past the same row of small houses, until she reached Mr. Kumar's home. He stood at his front gate, leaning on his cane, wearing a gentle smile. A small bicycle basket sat at his feet, filled with fresh marigolds. Aisha approached, and he reached up to give her the flowers, his hand steady despite the cane. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm. "These are for the center." Aisha laughed with delight. "They will brighten every corner," she said, tucking the blooms carefully into her bag. Behind him, Mrs. Sharma waved from the doorway. She carried a tray of warm pastries still steaming. Aisha took one and bit into the soft dough filled with sweet lentils. It felt like a promise of good things to come. She thanked Mrs. Sharma and stepped back, letting them close the gate. Together, they walked toward the bus stop, discussing the plans for today's friendship hour. At the community center, more people had arrived early. Some already sat around tables sharing tea and greetings. The room felt alive with chatter and laughter. Aisha placed the marigolds in vases on each table, and the flowers' golden petals caught the sunlight pouring in through the windows. Mr. Kumar and Mrs. Sharma entered next, their faces bright with pride. Mrs. Sharma helped carry pastries to the refreshment table, while Mr. Kumar greeted old friends from the first gathering. Aisha tapped her teacup to call the room to order. She spoke softly but with joy. "Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for coming again." She paused and looked across the circle. Faces returned her smile, and she added, "Today, Mr. Kumar, we'll begin with a poetry reading, and after that we have new activities planned." I hope you will join in wherever you feel comfortable. Mr. Kumar stood by a small podium set near the window. He cleared his throat gently, and the room hushed. He unfolded a crisp sheet of paper. "Good morning, dear friends," he began. "I promised to share poetry, and today I will read a poem by Tagore that helped me in hard times." His voice was clear, his words measured. The poem spoke of hope in the face of darkness, of a morning after a long night. As he read, Aisha watched his lips move in soft rhythm, and for a moment the world outside seemed to pause. When he finished, the room remained silent for a moment. Then people began to clap slowly, letting the last line echo in their hearts. The young woman wiped a tear from her cheek. Aisha moved to stand beside him. "Thank you, Mr. Kumar," she said. "That poem was beautiful." He nodded, his eyes shining. "Poetry brings us together," he replied. After the reading, Aisha invited everyone to choose one of 3 stations. The first station offered small pots, soil, and seeds for planting marigolds. The second station displayed books for a little free library project. The third station had instruments like a tambourine, a small drum, and a flute for a simple music circle. "Feel free to move between stations," Aisha said. "Let's fill this room with flowers, stories, and music." At the planting station, Mrs. Sharma guided curious hands as they filled pots with soil. She showed how to press the seeds gently and cover them with a thin layer of soil. Her calm voice made each step feel special. Aisha knelt beside a kindly neighbor named Nasir, showing him how to press the marigold seeds. He smiled as he worked, his fingers stained with earth. "This is my first time gardening," he said softly. "It feels good." Aisha laughed. "It feels like hope growing," she said. Across the room, the free library station had begun to buzz. Books in many languages lay open on the table. A teenage boy named Omar whispered to an older woman the titles of his favorite stories. She listened, nodding, and promised to add new books next week. Aisha watched as they taped labels on the bookshelves. "Take a story, leave a story." She felt a warmth knowing that neighbors would borrow and share tales long after today. At the music station, Mr. Kumar tapped a small drum. His hand moved. In soft, steady beats, a young woman named Emily played the flute. A shy girl tapped a tambourine. Soon, soft music floated through the room, gentle as a breeze. Aisha closed her eyes and let the melody fill her. She opened her eyes to see smiling faces swaying in time. Even those who did not play hummed along quietly, felt like a shared heartbeat joining them all. As the morning moved to afternoon, the stations merged. Neighbors carried potted marigolds into the library area, placing plants beside the shelves. Musicians tapped rhythms softly as they read aloud passages from books. Laughter bubbled when a marigold pot spilled a bit of soil, and they had to scoop it back with gentle hands. The air smelled of flowers and pages and warm bread. Aisha felt like she was inside a living tapestry of color and sound. Suddenly, a knock sounded at the door. A man stood outside, holding a camera. He wore a press badge from the community newspaper. "Hello," he said. "I heard about your friendship hour and thought we'd come by." Aisha felt her heart flutter. A moment ago, she had worried this would be just a small gathering. Now a newspaper came to tell the wider world. She smiled and introduced him. To Mr. Kumar and the group, the reporter walked through the room with careful steps, snapping photos of marigold pots, people reading books, and neighbors planting seeds side by side. He asked questions in a gentle voice, why they came, what friendship hour meant to them, how kindness had changed their days. Aisha stood beside him as neighbors spoke, freely about warmth found in a rainy night and promise grown from a shared cup of tea. When the reporter left, Aisha and the group burst into applause, proud of the story they would share. Aisha felt her cheeks glow. "This is bigger than us," she said. "It will inspire others." Mr. Kumar gave her a quiet nod. "Kindness spreads," he said, "just like seeds." The room fell silent for a moment as each person looked at the other. No words were needed. They all carried the same hope. Later, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Aisha gathered the group for one more circle. She asked each person to share one word that summed up their day. One by one, voices rose. hope, joy, connection, warmth, friendship. When it reached her turn, Aisha paused and let the faces around her fill her eyes. Then she spoke softly, community. The word rippled through the circle, binding them together in a final note. Before leaving, neighbors helped clear the room. They stacked chairs, folded tables, and swept up stray petals from the floor. Aisha thanked each volunteer and promised next week would bring new surprises. She hugged Mrs. Sharma, Nasir, Omar, Emily, and everyone by name. When at last only Aisha and Mr. Kumar remained, they stood in the center of the empty room. "I cannot thank you enough," Mr. Kumar said, his voice gentle but firm. He handed her a folded piece of paper. "I wrote this for you." Aisha opened it and read in Mr. Kumar's careful handwriting, "Dear Aisha, your kindness has saved more than just an old man in the rain. You have saved a village from loneliness. You have taught us to care for each other. May your heart always find joy in helping others, as ours has found joy because of you." Aisha's eyes filled with tears she did not try to hold back. She folded the letter into her pocket and hugged Mr. Kumar tightly. On her walk home, Aisha carried the notebook she had used to plan today's activities. She realized it no longer held her ideas. Instead, her heart brimmed with new dreams she could not yet write down. She thought of the marigolds that would bloom next week, the books that would travel from hand to hand, and the music that would fill the community center once more. She knew something had changed forever. That night, as she sat by her window, a soft breeze drifted in. She stared at the stars, thinking of every face she had met today. She whispered a quiet prayer of thanks for the gift of kindness and the strength of community. Then she opened her notebook and, in careful letters, wrote 4 small words. "Kindness changes everything." She smiled and closed the book, ready to dream of all the lives she would touch tomorrow and every day after. That